Thank you, I really appreciate that, and let's get started. And so my goal here is to go into practicality. We hear a lot of buzzwords, a lot of concepts about hacks and how to defend. Instead, I want to go from attacker's perspective. I came from a red team background, which spent a long time, punishing sysadmins, and now kind of have to pay a penance to make computers fix it, because people finally ask, okay, how do you fix it? But our goal here is going to rant a little bit about the current landscape, and the goal is I'd love to have the lawyer CISO types become a little technical and get into this, so we can keep all the vendors honest, we can keep everyone honest in this field, and go through a real tabletop hack scenario with things that I've done, seen in the lab, seen other people do. So, already got that really nice intro. Don't need to do this. Been accused of some stunt hacks and spent a long time hacking the enterprise, and also trying to get everybody off the cloud too, which I know a little bit against the trends and proud of it. So, essentially, you created a server configuring robot, and I have had my grandpa set up an entire enterprise in air-gapped environments. So, been fun stuff. So, done with shameless self-promotion there. So, disclaimers, I'm going to be very opinionated. I appreciated being called passionate, but sometimes I use the word opinionated. But only thing is, what I've mentioned has all been done in reality. Like, everything I've mentioned is 100% real. Oh, cool. Let me see if this works. Okay, hey, I can use this. I figured it out. So, big disclaimer, not a criminal, have never been one, do not encourage anybody to use any of this knowledge to do criminal activity. Just think of it like when you go to a karate class, and don't use it to beat up people on the playground. This is only for learning, or I encourage everybody to build a lab. I heard one lawyer here talk about how he's building a lab, and that's awesome. Please do that. So I'm just kind of simplifying, with the RSA Expo and all the red team talks, it's all, oh my God, you're going to be hacked. Give your money to this vendor. He'll check a box for you and give you a box. And I didn't mean to pick on any vendor. It's the Google algorithm's fault. I just Googled Blinky box to figure out which box I'm going to put on there. And that's what came up first. So if you're mad at your vendor, it's Google algorithm's fault, not mine. So, but the goal here, even though I'm going to talk about a lot of bad things, I want everybody to be more confident, not less confident, because a lot of these concepts you guys can grasp. Even if you're not technical, it's a similar concept to you're more worried about your jewelry at home than your pants drawer when you're worrying about burglars. So this is what we see a lot of times with the current solutions. This does a better job at doing my rant for me. So I'm going to see them go in there. But a lot of blinky boxes there. But that's the reality. So then my alternative to that is essentially this. You can see Richard Stallman over there yelling at the cloud providers. And should be too young to call myself an old man, because I grew up thinking that Michael Jordan had always been on the Bulls. So lessons learned. So here's all the things, and we don't have to go through all of them, but SSL inspection, zero trust, all this stuff. So many people say zero trust. It's not zero trust, but it's become kind of a buzzword and marketing word. I leave a lot of the small text there because it's kind of notes, but then people ask for slides, and I always forget to put a narrative aside from it, so I'm trying to do both at the same time. And while the other disclaimer, audits are good, checking boxes is good, an actual attacker is not going to say, okay, here's what you're missing from your PCI, let me use this against you. It's, okay, how am I going to steal your stuff? And the sad part is there will be no silver bullet. So I'm also going to poke fun at a lot of vendors, but the tech is cool. Just wish marketing was a little more honest, and I think after something like this, we can try to move it this way. And I know there's some technical people in the audience too, and I'd love feedback to how do we do this to get the non-technical people to be able to think more technical. So of course, our work is always done. There's no more data breaches, right? All you need is a WAF. Okay, no, a WAF's a cool tool, but it's not going to make your data breaches go away. But okay, sure, it's hyperbole, but I was talking to an MSP once, and there was a discussion earlier on the panel about remote management. Okay, it's interesting, you can have the IT people update it, but I asked an MSP once, so how do you make sure that when your technicians, if their laptops are compromised, that they are not going to then just deliver ransomware to your clients or even worse, steal their data. You know what their response was? Well, we've got a sonic wall in our office, even though their technicians are remote too, so who really cares about that? But oh my God, we have a sonic wall, so we're safe, right? None of us need to be here. We don't have jobs anymore. No, not true, not true. And of course, my least favorite is people say, oh, zero trust on a cloud-based vendor. No, you are trusting that cloud provider with all your stuff, with identity, and I'm poking fun at them because they actually got completely compromised. So, oh, zero trust, even though we've been completely compromised, but you should trust us and it's still zero trust. No. And that's kind of where I am in my cynicism, where that all comes. So, to get you all to share my cynicism and then hopefully provide some rays of hope at the end, let's go hack a company. So we're going to call this company Kim Jong Corp because we're not criminals, but these guys are so evil, let's just destroy it and make their life miserable. So I'm going to start with just the principles of hacking. So exploitation is when you get into a box, you pop something. Now, it could be through social engineering, so when installing a bot, tricking them. Nobody's trick-proof. Have a lot of hacker friends. We trick each other all the time. I've fallen for it. They've fallen for it. It's when we're all hanging out and laptops are open, just be very careful, but no one does any harm. But then once you're in, you want to stay in. So one defensive technique is when you wipe a machine, yeah, you can get the attackers out. So when you're in, you want to stay in and you want to pivot. Get on as many machines as possible. But one counterpoint to that is your whole operational security. You don't want to get detected. And detection works very effectively. I've seen a lot of very successful blue teams focus on detection. Red teams have shown up. Within minutes, they've gotten detected if you're up on your toes. If you say, hey, something is weird. So there is hope there. I'm going to keep messages of hope while we completely destroy Kim Jong Corp. So I'm sorry about the font. I messed that up. So essentially, we're going to have, and we'll go into more graphics about that, but we're going to phish some people. We're going to use some drones. We don't need the drones, but why not? And we could use cloud leaks if we wanted, like passwords leak all the time, but that's no fun. And some man in the middle. We also could say, hey, there's some known exploits and take over stuff, but I want to also convey the message that even if you're fully patched, you still could have issues. So, interesting thing before we begin this, so we're in the minds of an attacker, we have a budget too. We want to make money, but not spend too much. Sometimes at nation states, they'll buy exploits. And in fact, there's a huge market out there for that, both on the gov side, private sector side, on the legal and the illegal side. There's antivirus companies that are buying exploits, but people will buy them so they can take over a machine more stealthily. Social engineering also works really well, so for most companies, that's what's going to happen. If you're a large enterprise, you might see some exploits bought, and so you just have to know, hey, some things can be compromised, and be able to stop that. And you're not going to be able to afford Stuxnet to hack a 50-employee company. So that's not going to happen, and people mention scenarios there. Sure, prepare for it, but not going to happen. So the defenses we're going to have, we're going to have a firewall, we're going to have a proxy, we're going to have data loss prevention, of course. We're going to have antivirus, we're going to have SSL inspection, maybe some cloud tools because that'll be more fun because they'll compromise them even further. And then there's going to be some blue teamers that we're going to watch out for in this tabletop. So let's get to work. We're going to get a machine, and we're going to start taking the data, and so we're going to take our first victim. But before we do that, what do we put on that machine? Well, we got to design our malware. So we're going to design some custom malware here. So what does this malware have to do? It needs to get past and be undetected and look like normal traffic. But we need to be able to control it. It needs to be the remote console that comes back. So as an attacker, we can control it. We want it on as many machines as possible, but we don't want them to know what it actually is. And so we're going to go through kind of all the design principles of this malware we're going to create to hack Kim Jong Corp. So the first big thing, and this is with remote work, people have started to give up on the perimeter more, but I just want to make more of that. So with firewalls and perimeter protection, the big thing is what's the easiest way to open a door? from the inside. So take a bank vault, you always have that emergency exit. But what's the equivalent of that in a company? Well, in an office, you got to browse the web, you got to go to Google, you've got to be able to research things, maybe go to your Office 365, so you can go out and grab stuff. So you're opening the door. So why not make it so that our malware just keeps opening the door and grabbing in the bad commands at the same time? So how does it actually work in real life? So over there, the bot will just connect to the evil server, download the page, maybe fill out a contact form, like it's filling out a contact form for a regular website. The traffic looks totally innocuous. Now, let's go back to the blue team. If the traffic's going really fast and you're seeing a lot of traffic on a weird site you haven't seen before, you might want to talk about it. You might want to say, something's weird from that machine. Now, if you're going to a bunch of cloud providers, all those IPs are whitelisted anyway, so it gets way harder. So back to my cloud cynicism, but that is one way you can go about it. But you're tunneling out to this website and going right through the firewall, right through the DLP, and the reason the DLP isn't going to catch you is and the whitelisting is, well, in this bot, how about we use what's already whitelisted? So and in the past, we've done some YouTube commenting bots in the lab, Twitter commenting, and one of the Twitter bots that in the past research project was made is still up, still working. And it's kind of funny, one of the guys who is working for us now, I was mentoring him while he was in high school. He made that bot, really smart guy, but it's still up. We were playing with it yesterday as we were finishing putting this together. But we can get an account anywhere, can put stuff up there, post whatever we want. The victim can post. And okay, well, what if you can try to detect what the victim's posting? Decrypt all the SSL, right? Because people are even talking about they're scared that upstairs I heard some people talking about, and rightly so, you can stop accidental data loss, but the problem is intentional data loss. Well, the attacker could hide their data in that. There's a lot of pixels there. You're not going to notice a few that have gone missing. And so it might just be posting lolcat memes to Instagram, where meanwhile, that's all your data going out the door, and it might just look like, that's just an employee goofing off on their lunch break, and maybe you want your data exfil to happen during the lunch break to hide like you're actually going to do that during the lunch break. So this is a real-life example. We've seen this. I've seen this one. It's still up there, but it's saying password suggestions. Of course, it makes no sense. These passwords are public. But an account like that could totally be an exfil. You see all these other characters. You see Japanese characters with Chinese characters in there too. The nice thing about that is you have way more bytes to work with. It's not just 1 byte per character, because you're going with Unicode, which is really just allowing international characters. Way easier to hide stuff. So that could be something that it would look like. And that looks innocuous, just 50 people viewing a password suggestion page. So finally, this is how our bot's going to work. So we're compromising a machine, maybe other machines. It's going to be decoding images or text files. So it's just going to look like a word processor or a text editor that's going to hide things in extra spaces. And sometime I'll show demos of this. Didn't have control of the laptop here, but if someone wants to see demos at some point, would love to show them. Goes to the DLP. DLP thinks we're browsing Twitter, browsing Instagram, posting to that. Lots of people are doing that at the office. And in this case, the evil account on Twitter is just giving, well, we're hacking an evil company, so the good account, I guess, is posting tweets saying, hey, do this, do that, making up a brand new encryption or hiding algorithm. So you can't just detect the algorithm. That would be too easy. So we're going to also talk about antivirus evasion. This might be a little bit advanced, but all it really is you have a bunch of bytes that the antivirus is looking for. So that byte string there is just a command. It's for a Linux hack that just says phone home, similar to a reverse TCP, in very few bytes. So if you're doing an exploit, it's there. So an antivirus might say, hey, I see that code. So all we have to do is just change a little bit, because if it's taking a 4-byte string, you're going to have legitimate things using those 4 bytes. So I know it's a little complicated, but I had said we're going to go through the entire thing, gloves off, technical, so I didn't want to hide anything. But that's generally what we would do with antivirus evasion. And if anyone's interested later, I can send some more info on that. So then there's a lot of tools that do this. They've gotten better. I have my opinions about it, but there's a lot of public tools that do these things. So we don't need to. We can fish them, but I kind of like the drone stuff. So we're going to install our bot. We're going to use a drone in this scenario. They've been working from home for a while. Their home Wi-Fi is enabled, and their SSID is there, but they're back in the office. We're going to fly the drone over the office to compromise them. But their home SSID is on top because they've been working from home for a while. So first thing for fun, I want their password and I want their two-factor, so I'm going to serve up a fake Juniper VPN portal or some of the web-based VPN portals. Username, password, one-time code. Okay, easy, really cheap way to defeat two-factor authentication because hey, the code only lasts for a minute, but we can log in. We can see some stuff. Yeah, the user might log in legitimately and kick us out, but certain times of the evening, we might log in. And so we're in the VPN, but if we're doing it from our machine, I want to be super careful. Yeah, we could look for everything. We could start exploiting stuff. In reality, if I was doing a true red team exercise, or if I was an attacker, might not, because I'd almost rather it come from the legitimate machine. So we can blame that victim machine. So yeah, we're doing some victim blaming. And so, but I might find some file shares, see if there's anything open, look at some code, because a lot of people have some custom software, figure out what's going on. There's a lot of security by obscurity unintentionally out there, but we're going to find some time, figure out how do things work, learn about the organization. We're going to be on the victim's machine. So in this scenario, I'm like, okay, they're logging to Zoom all the time. They've got passwords. Let's get them. And Office 365, also more passwords, but there's some security mechanisms that make it a little harder to sniff passwords there. Now, that doesn't stop Office 365 from being hacked itself, which is a very juicy target. So that's my opinion, but I think all the big providers have been hacked. We just don't know about them, but that's just my opinion. And we can also dump their password hashes. We could be careful. There's some known tools that do it, but Blue Team's going to look for the tools that security researchers put out there because the bad guys often steal tools from the security researchers to do bad things. That's bad for them, so they block them. But change a few bytes, mess around with it, can do that. We might have some passwords we stole from cloud, so let's log into some servers. If we got the sysadmin's machine, that's really fun. And so this is kind of how a cloud leak of passwords might work, because if you have cloud-based application, well, sure, the cloud-based application might be fairly secure, harder to do some of these cheap tactics, but it's really juicy. If this cloud-based company has about 10,000 customers, well, I'm going to pay some more money, get some exploits. Nation states can get in there, and we've seen a lot of these providers get breached, see a lot of passwords. And the nice thing, too, is a lot of times people hook it up to their Active Directory, and so now we have all their internal Windows passwords because they want their passwords to be the same. So now all their Windows passwords are on someone else's computer or someone else's root. And someone could even say to that major cloud provider, tell one of those employees, hey, here's a suitcase full of gold. Plug this in, don't ask questions. And a lot of people would just take the gold. So, and there are some things Microsoft has done, but then we'll also make sure we can hack those because I'm cynical and I always want to just destroy everything. Sorry, vendors, I'm really sorry. There's a time and a place for everything. We know what that does. So, we get a little technical again. Now that we're on the network, one thing we can do, and I'm sure you guys have heard about this a lot, which is Arp Spoofing, which when you're on a switch, a lot of people might do it, say, oh, well, only these IPs can connect. So in this case, Alice is trying to talk to Bob. In reality, when someone says, hey, I want to connect to this IP address, the switch has a hardware address. You've noticed the MAC address, which I know might be a little technical for here, but really it's just that a little string of where is this thing plugged in. But if someone's like, hey, I want to connect to this IP on this switch, the bad guy can be like, no, I'm there. Connect to this port here, over here. Well, Bob's also saying, no, I'm here. But there's ways to say, no, override. This is me here. I am here. And then put Bob's page up and say, no, here's my encryption key. Encrypt it for me. And then the bad guy steals all of it. So you could do that a lot. Put some phishing pages up. Maybe put an Azure AD page up there so someone types their domain admin password in because they think, oh, I'm just going out here, but you've gotten them to go to different places. So if we have an admin account on them. So giving users local admin, well, it's not a trust thing. It's, hey, if you're logged in as local admin, you can do a lot of bad things. I don't like to be logged in as root on my own stuff. Even if it's my company, I don't like to leave stuff logged in as root, and I need to do that even less than I do. And so, but even if we don't have admin, file shares, nobody does permissions on those. Sometimes people even have user profiles that are world writable. And a lot of people think, oh, well, it's internal behind a firewall. Well, we've just defeated that. So we're already in. So, and that's where I think Zero Trust got some popularity is, yes, every machine can be turned into a bad guy. Make sure I'm doing okay on time. Okay, still definitely good. We're good on time there. So we do some ARP poisoning. We can phish people, send emails. You can forge an email, but it's way better if that email also comes from the victim's laptop, from the admin. That's even better. So it looks totally legitimate and fooling blue team. And so there's probably a lot of code repositories. They might have a Git repository. That's always fun. We can learn a lot about what they do, where their APIs are, how to connect to them. Be a good idea to authenticate wherever you can. So for fun, just I want to pick on Azure AD, so let's send a phishing email. Oh, there's a cool new Azure AD app from there to the junior admin, from the senior admin. It's not signed on the Google Play Store because Microsoft doesn't like Google. And there's all these ads about Microsoft not liking Google. Great story they told. Okay, how are we going to get azuread.app as a domain? Well, here's how. I don't know if this laser pointer works. azuread.app, azureads.com, $200, $12. You can get a free SSL certificate. 100% legitimate traffic. Now, whitelisting helps a little bit, but if you're behind the proxy and you're serving the page from the victim machine, that stuff's on your perimeter. So, might be able to get away with that. Download the Android app. Okay, now we're in their phone and connects to the Wi-Fi. No one suspects a phone. So, beside the nation state that's hacking Azure AD anyway, which is why I just avoid any cloud, but that's me. That stuff really scares me because as someone who spent time with permission hacking big financial institutions, the bigger something gets, the harder it is to sysadmin. I could never sysadmin one of these cloud providers securely, and many people who are much better at me at sysadmining wouldn't be able to do that. That would scare them, and they won't touch it. So but aside from that, okay, fake login. Now the nice thing is all these cloud-based apps that you have where you might not even be able to back it up. Well, we had the login because we just got your Azure AD because we put the fake login page similar to earlier when we went to something like this. We can make it look like that. Two-factor auth, no problem. We have that account. We can log in. Azure AD might not even give you a log. You know, you're trusting the cloud provider to give you the logs. Good luck on getting them to give you actual monitoring. Someone was trying to get their data back because they stupidly deleted their Google Drive. They tried to sue them and get it back in discovery, and Google's like, no, that data's gone. So we have that fake page, got the stuff. We can have fake login screens everywhere and do it very slowly, very deliberately over time. A really good attacker is slow because we don't want to get caught. And okay, LastPass might be fun. LastPass.app, right there. LastPass.com's taken, obviously, but it's actually kind of funny. LastPass.inc is like $1,100. So there's definitely value of having your domain name be a fake LastPass. LastPass.digital. Hey, if I was using LastPass, I'd probably do that. Most CISOs here would probably do that. I don't blame them. You're not going to look at every URL. We're all busy, have like 200 things on our mind if we're lucky for a lot of people here. It's not the user's fault. Layer 8 attacks, a lot of times people say they're the user's fault. Anybody can get tricked. So another fun thing we'll do, security boxes. Nobody ever suspects the security boxes. Nobody ever thinks, oh, antivirus can get hacked, which is really funny talking about compliance because if your antivirus is vulnerable and there's a big O-Day out there, technically you can't do a temporary mitigation without remaining compliant. So the law or the compliance will actually require you to be vulnerable. So yeah, it's very hard. And so, but my favorite's data loss prevention. We've already bypassed it, but why not turn it into our tool? Why is this great? Okay, everyone trusts the certificate and trusts the traffic going through. So we've decrypted everything. We can put malware on Amazon.com. So for hacking these companies, we also have their Amazon passwords too for fun. Lots of credit cards there. And so lots of bad things we're going to do. So when they do their breach disclosure and like, okay, by the way, staff, all your Amazon creds got stolen, all your credit cards got stolen too, which is a really, really bad day. So for defenses, so don't want that. And like, everyone trusts that. SolarWinds. Oh, it makes us more secure. No, we gotta be careful. And so we're in that SSL inspection now. How do we get in? Well, could exploit it, might be worth it, but let's just steal the admin's password. Passwords are there, people send them, people type them. We stole two-factor too. Okay, so we have everything. So we keep the leak going if we want, but if we also win, could ransom them. Now, it's kind of interesting with the SolarWinds hack. They had a planned ransomware attack, but why didn't they do that right away? So much money. Well, they were getting a lot of info. Info's worth a lot, and over time, over an infinite period of time. Someone could potentially go for two and just send a bunch of really bad phishing emails and make the ransomware attack look like it came from a phishing email, which is, I think some nation states might actually be going with bad ransomware, intentionally just trying to take down companies, because it looks like just some lowlives trying to do ransoms, but meanwhile it's let's screw up your IT and not ever give you the key. So that's likely going on. And the cloud apps might not be backed up. Everyone trusts cloud. Okay, if you're Azure AD, okay, now all this cloud-based stuff is encrypted too. Sure, you backed up your Office, but it's not there. Okay, so been cynical, destroying pretty much everything out there. But the reason I did that is all these things, like Arp spoofing, you can configure your switches to protect against that. You can try to stop password spoofing. And we try to think about various ways you can do that. Okay, what are my mitigations? But the goal is, instead of having a vendor tell you, oh, you need this box, you're like, okay, here's what I'm afraid of. And these things are kind of a guideline to start getting you thinking, hey, as an attacker, here's all the bad things I can do. Let's start cutting them off. So I like detection. Because why do I like detection? I've seen it work. I've seen people successfully do it, successful blue teams, and it's great. Which is another reason why I like everything on-prem. If you're going to do detection, keep it on your endpoints, because if it's over the network, everything's encrypted. Even if you say, oh, you can't encrypt the steganography stuff we showed, like embedding it in images, you won't detect that crypto. I heard a vendor once say, oh, we'll detect it if it's encrypted. Well, not true. We got past that. So do it on the endpoints, but preferably, if you're going to do an endpoint security solution, I would do it on an on-prem one, because then you're not connecting to some random place, some random cloud. And I love phishing training, and I've heard stories of people who do phishing trainings, and instead of the training phishing getting it caught, a user came to the admins and said, hey, we think we found the training. Do we win the gift card? And it turned out that was a real phishing attack. So they gave him 2 gift cards, I think, at that point. But it was very, very easy, a couple $100 where now you know, and you can react very quickly. And so, but my favorite, of course, and more shameless self-promotion is just cutting the cable where you can, separate networks, physically isolate, don't like software isolation, buy cheap switches and just have separate switches, not just a bunch of the VLANs and stuff. That gets complicated and you'll mess it up, because I'll mess it up. And I play with a lot of this stuff a lot, and a lot of people I know someone's been doing Juniper for 20 years and he's typed the wrong commands that I sometimes type in my past, and the people outside the office lining up, no, all your problems are related, sorry guys. So, okay, so we're figuring out how to actually defend. So the real thing we want to think about is, what is your attack surface? And more than that, where do we actually care? There's some parts that we care about more. Some parts we don't want to lose and want to just keep that. But find out where you're weak. Admit that, get assessments, get pen testers, and think about it yourself. You know more than the attacker does when they're getting through your obscure organization. And tell your people, hey, if we are bad at something, talk about what we're bad at. You won't be able to do it perfectly. Nobody does. You will have vulnerabilities that you know about that hopefully the attacker doesn't, and you can try to mitigate and have a plan to fix it. You're going to play cat and mouse, but the attackers, to win, they go slow. So you got time sometimes as long as you're vigilant. And then think about what's the practicality. A phishing email or a Stuxnet. Now, if you don't patch your USB drivers on Windows, then someone might take a Stuxnet. If you're a nation state, okay, have an air gap and wipe that machine that receives the USB drives every day because, we talked about persistence, wipe out the persistence. So you still have that risk, but that's how you might mitigate that. But in reality, not really that big. And so what was the attack surface we found? So we're going to take this fictitious company. We had some rogue Wi-Fi. We could do stuff with that. You could use some always-on VPNs that might actually do some protection. Now, don't trust them completely. There are some holes. Sometimes you have to say, hey, Starbucks Wi-Fi might have to work, and then click on the portal. But then the problem is you can fake the Starbucks Wi-Fi portal, so have to be careful. There's some cool web things like HSTS. I don't want to get too technical, but interesting stuff. Happy to talk to people later and also point them to resources that do a much better job explaining than I do. But the inside attack surface, we got some solid passwords, got some data to ransom. The network was allowing man-in-the-middle attacks as part of the attack surface, and there were servers that had some data. Those are the servers we care the most about. Audit those logons. Who's logging into them? How often is your sysadmin logging into them? Are they logging in at 3 a.m. when there's not an issue? Because if they have a choice, they want to be asleep at 3 a.m. sometimes. And then the other thing, too, is we had cloud, which is the infinite attack surface, because a lot of times people whitelist all the cloud IPs because they have cloud-based applications, so that all becomes whitelisted. And then as an attacker, you just make a cloud instance and can have people talk to it, and I'll stop there about that. Actually, no, I won't. I forgot. I have even more. I was going to rant about with cloud, but essentially that. But then also cloud with cloud. Stuxnet-like attacks, real nation states, they can happen there. And that attacker, like we talked about earlier, is going to be super quiet. And then they're going to send you a bunch of phishing emails when they attack you from your cloud provider and make it look like it was your fault. You're not going to be able to prove it. Are you going to be able to call up Amazon and Discovery? Well, the lawyers here know more about that, but I don't know how much that would cost, probably a lot. So you guys know more about that than me, but I would think that would be really hard to be like, oh my God, Amazon got attacked, when that might be the reality. Good luck proving it, because hundreds of billions of dollars of their market cap, or Microsoft or Google, matter based on did they not get compromised. So you won't win that one very easily. And so just kind of my defensive strategy. So the shameless self-promotion part, misconfigurations, avoid them. Computers should configure computers. Okay, now I can be here and not be at work today. But really, what do you want to protect? At home when you're protecting from burglars, you put the jewelry in the safe, not your pants, right? The burglar doesn't care about your pants, usually. You can replace those. But the gold jewelry, okay, that's a different story. Your family secrets, different story. So know where that is, but then also what stuff do you want to back up? Because what stuff would you really want to get there? And there's a big difference, because something you don't want to lose, be very careful, because once it's out the door forever. If it's something that's just, I've seen some companies, they have many physically separate networks, and sometimes, okay, all the stuff in the office, not sensitive. All the stuff behind the air gap, a lot of defense contractors, stuff in the SCIF versus the stuff where it's just random emails, different story, right? They get ransomed, okay, we just back up our emails. If someone gets into the SCIF, well, that's air gap for a very good reason. Sorry, a SCIF is a place where people do classified work, but the other thing I'd say is just look at what you're scared of. Where do you not want them? Work backwards. Alice and Bob have access to this server and my consultant. Okay, who has access to their stuff? Do you give people a separate laptop for accessing that server? Might be worth it. It's a lot cheaper than a lot of vendor options, and give them a separate piece of hardware and say, you will not browse the internet from this laptop. This is for adminning only. Throw hardware at the problem. It's way cheaper. Especially if you buy eBay hardware, there's a lot of stuff out there if you're worried about supply chain. It's able to do 10 gig Ethernet at our office to all the desktops with paying $200 per switch, so works out pretty well. So, but kind of the takeaway too, keep it simple. It's, for example, a Blinky box, a DLP is going to do way less than 4 invalid password attempts locks you out. And wait, why am I getting locked out all the time? The admin will say. Well, let me wipe my laptop. And then as attacker, I'm like, crap, my malware's gone from that. I need to get it back on there. And you might figure something out. But simple. If you want detection, complicated AI solutions and all that stuff is fine. I say keep it on-prem. Some people might have different opinions, but kind of talked about that. And also, if you want to scare a cloud security person, say the word hypervisor breakout, because customer Alice and customer Bob are sharing the same server underneath, and there's ways to break out of that. So nobody ever talks about that. So that's part of my rant there. But keep that on-prem. But it's all about your attack surface, and chances are, as a CISO, you should know your attack surface, even non-technical. You could talk to your IT and say, hey, where's our data? I'm worried about this. Where is it located? Again, on-prem's easier with that for many reasons, like right there versus, oh, that's in our cloud provider that's in the Russia data center. Wait, what? So on the defensive key takeaways here are just detection, but simple is kind of my end there of how to do that. I guess I forgot to put the offense stuff in there, but anyway, questions? Sorry, I know that was a lot. Yes?
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago just reading about network access control and just wondering, remote worker connecting to enterprise environment, are there any good solutions for, checking whether that computer has been patched, checking it for malware before it connects to the enterprise network?
So on the thought about doing it simply, so BYOD is very hard, and a lot of those things, a BYOD, like even in good for enterprise back then, back with the old Samsung phones, you're running something on top where something underneath the regular computer can kind of get in there, so that's hard to protect. So I generally say, give someone a laptop, give it to them, have them wipe it all the time. Have the VPN always be on. Maybe you can whitelist some portals like United Wi-Fi, for example, and just say, hey, turn this VPN on, educate them about that, and just say, hey, you can only go to these pages, so you're not going to do that. I mean, and allowing the public Wi-Fi is still a risk, so you got to manage your risks, but keep it simple and wipe them just every day, I would say. If you can, don't wipe them every day. That's paranoid me, but once in a while, make sure they get cleaned off. And then that will start to hurt persistence a little bit. That's at least my first instincts. Hope that helped. Right.
What's the solution for protecting the ICS or a shop room workflow? How do you stop them or those kinds of things?
So with those, you're gonna have a lot of old computers. So I would go back to the greatest firewall in the world, a pair of scissors, air gap that. And so just keep it all offline. And then you really don't have to worry about nearly as much. And I mean, you still want to make sure that your physical security is good. You use good locks on your door, good cameras, and all of that. And you can still have a network for your office too. So I'm not saying disconnect all your office workers from the internet, but you can have separate networks. You don't have to connect everything. I know everyone says, oh, the world's going to be connected. And sometimes you got to stop and say why. Ask why. Right. Then you're being kicked off.